Hey, welcome back to Daily Flash. I'm Mitch English. You know, mommy bloggers, listen, it's time to pay up. You've profited from your kids on TikTok. Now you got to pay the piper. Your kids. Joining us to talk about this is Amanda Hoover. She's the senior correspondent for Business Insider. Amanda, thank you for joining us. There's states in the union right now, California, Utah, Illinois, Minnesota. They're all introducing this new legislation that's going to protect child influencers. But what really made this kind of go into action and for them to take action now?
Yeah, over the past couple of years, some of this started in like 2023, and we're seeing more states even consider doing this. But what happened was there were a couple of pretty high profile incidents of children being exploited, children being abused by their parents who were making this content and profiting off of this content. We also saw some activism from just young people who were saying, hey, this doesn't seem right that you're putting kids online. So some of this has been driven by Gen Z people who are becoming adults. Some of it has been driven by the most heinous stories online
Yes.
of this abuse and exploitation. So lawmakers are really finally stepping in and saying, like, we have to do something
There,
about this.
there is a special on Netflix that talks just about this. And there's even a video that has come out from mommy bloggers where they have the kid right next to them, and it's the outtakes basically. And the kid's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And the mom is actually making them do it. And that's not always the case. However, where that money goes is going to change, as you just mentioned. The new laws are now requiring that some of the earnings from the kids will be placed in trusts and then grants them the rights to either sue or demand those content deletion, which is actually more important in my opinion. Isn't this the same as Hollywood? It has to do with child actors and such.
Yeah, they're in a way, it's a lot of these are modeled off of the Coogan Law, which is a law that's been around for decades in Hollywood to ensure that child actors get paid. What's a little bit different here? If you're under 13, you really can't make your own accounts on a lot of these social media
Right.
platforms, or these kids appearing in their parents' videos. So the parents are the ones getting the money. The original law that deals more with child actors mandates that the employer puts this money in a trust. This mandates that parents do it. So it's kind of lacking in an enforcement mechanism. That's what critics say so far. It's going to be on the parents to do this, to put money away in a trust, to calculate how frequently children appear in their videos, because this doesn't apply to, anyone posting their kids online. The kids
Right.
have to appear in a kind of significant portion regularly for it to trigger this. So there's some concern that parents might not go ahead and do this. And the protection is that kids can then sue when they're 18. But, I don't know at age 18 that I would have been able to contact a lawyer, file a lawsuit. You're going to cause some strife in your family, I think, if you do that as well. So it's, I think people are seeing this as a good start, but wonder how enforceable it's going to
Well,
be.
you think about it, it's a business. If you go to a business, I'll pick out a radio station or TV station. When you go in, you have to see the public file, meaning that you look and you say, okay, everything's in a row. And it seems like these, if you have your kids on it, maybe they can go and say, hey, yes, here's the documentation that I did this. This actually kind of came to light. Ruby Frank, actually, online fame actually masked some severe mistreatment. Have there been other high-profile cases influencing public perception about children influencers as well? And how has this kind of really motivated this?
Yeah, there are a few others. There's, a recent Netflix documentary dealing with this squad of kids that were all working in content creation for a YouTube channel. Some allegations there that there were abuse. The family there has denied it. The Ruby Frankie case is among the most heinous.
Hmm.
She is serving time in prison for child abuse. She's been convicted criminally, and she was in Utah. Her daughter has really spoken out a lot about this. That's kind of the inspiration behind Utah getting behind this. And Utah is also a place where we see a ton of child and parent influencers. It's a little bit of a hub for it. So they're moving, to try to make sure this exploitation doesn't happen again. I think part of the problem is that most of these laws really focus more on compensation, which is great. It
Yes.
recognizes that influencing is work, that children should get paid for the work that they're doing. But it doesn't necessarily, address the most heinous things like child abuse,
Right.
and things like that. Like that would still have to be uncovered in ways over time, which is unfortunate for any kids that are in situations like that. But it is definitely a step that's being taken. And I do want to just say that I think that most families that are doing this are not abusing or
Right.
exploiting their kids. There's probably a good chance that a lot will be proactive and open these trusts, if they want to be good actors and care about the well-being of their children, these laws are kind of there as a mechanism for the most severe cases in which parents, don't do that.
You kind of, we talked about it, and I want to go back to it, but how do you think regulators are really going to enforce those new laws that are going to be into effect? Would it be paperwork? Would it be having, social services coming to the house? How do you expect to see that?
Yeah, well, what legal experts say about this is that there is no enforcement from the
Wow.
state. It's kind of on the kids when they're 18 to
Yeah.
realize that they might qualify for this and to go sue if they weren't taken care of and didn't have their money put into a trust. So that's one of the places where people see this as possibly weak and they wonder if lawsuits will come because regulators tend to not want to get involved in, the happenings in the home, in the
True.
family, unless there's these cases of severe child abuse. And that's what makes this so different than other forms of child labor. Historically, when we had kids in factories, coal mines, working in people's homes, other people's homes, it was easier to go in and kind of like get the kids out of there and for society to turn on that type of work. This is a little bit more of a gray area where it's like how much of this is natural, how much of this is staged. You can't totally know when you're watching from the outside.
No, you're absolutely right. And, you're talking about the coal mines and stuff. You can't edit out the bad stuff, that you can being an influencer and that sort of thing. It's interesting. It doesn't sound, I mean, with your investigation, I'm sure that you've seen all kinds of stuff, but where it's going to continue to happen because it's so easy to make this kind of money and that sort of thing. And I got to tell you, it's scary if you think about it too, because it really messes up these kids mentally too and these sort of things. Thank you so much for joining us. Now listen, if you want to find out more about these mommy blogger crackdowns, you can head over to businessinsider.com, get more information and read that article, of course, by Amanda Hoover. We got more of today's trends and tomorrow's talk. Stick around, you're watching.